She found a crying child alone in the snow. But when his father arrived, her heart stopped beating. Sarah Mitchell had been running on empty for 3 years. Ever since her husband walked out the door with nothing but a suitcase and a mumbled apology, she'd been working double shifts at the hospital, raising her 6-year-old daughter Emma alone, and trying to convince herself that exhaustion was just another word for strength. This December evening, she was driving home from her shift, the late one that paid extra but left her hollow-eyed and shaking with fatigue. Snow was falling thick and fast, coating the roads in white silence. The small town of Riverside looked like a postcard, all warm windows and Christmas lights, but Sarah barely noticed anymore. Beauty required energy she didn't have. She was 2 blocks from home when she saw him. A little boy, maybe 7 years old, standing alone on the corner near the closed grocery store. No coat. Just a thin Superman t-shirt and jeans, his arms wrapped around himself, shivering violently in the falling snow. Sarah's heart lurched. She pulled over immediately, hazard lights blinking, and jumped out of her car. "Sweetie, are you okay? Where are your parents?" The boy looked up at her with tear-streaked cheeks and terrified eyes. "I can't find my daddy. We were getting groceries, and I went to look at the toys, and when I came back, he was gone, and the store closed, and I don't know where he is." His lips were turning blue. Sarah didn't hesitate. She wrapped her own coat around his small, shaking body and guided him to her car. She didn't know that helping this lost child would bring her face to face with the one person she'd spent 3 years trying to forget. "What's your name, honey?" Sarah asked as she cranked up the heat in her car. "Dylan," the boy said through chattering teeth. "Dylan Mitchell." Sarah's hands froze on the steering wheel. Mitchell. The same last name she'd kept after the divorce because changing it felt like erasing Emma from existence. That's my last name too," she said carefully. "What's your daddy's name?" "James," Dylan said. "James Mitchell. Do you know him?" The world tilted. Sarah gripped the steering wheel harder, trying to breathe through the shock flooding her system. James Mitchell. Her ex-husband. The man who'd walked out on her and Emma 3 years ago with promises to send child support that never came. The man who'd disappeared so completely it was like he'd never existed at all. He had another child. A son she'd never known about. I might know where he is," Sarah managed to say. "Can you tell me what happened?" Through Dylan's halting, frightened explanation, a story emerged. James had joint custody with Dylan's mother. This was his weekend. They'd come to the grocery store and Dylan had wandered off to the toy aisle. When he came back, his dad was gone, probably assuming Dylan had walked back to the car in the parking lot. "He's probably looking for you right now," Sarah said, her mind racing. "Let me call the police and—" "There he is!" Dylan shouted, pointing out the window. A man was running down the sidewalk, frantic, calling a name that got lost in the wind. Even through the snow and darkness, Sarah recognized the shape of him. The way he moved, the desperate panic in his body language. James, her ex-husband, the father of her child, the man who'd abandoned them without explanation. And now the father of this terrified little boy shivering in her passenger seat. She didn't want to get out of the car. Didn't want to face him. Didn't want to shatter the fragile peace she'd built in his absence. But Dylan was already unbuckling his seatbelt, calling out, "Daddy! Daddy, I'm here!" Sarah took a deep breath and stepped out into the snow. James saw his son first. The relief on his face was so profound it made him stagger. He ran toward the car, scooping Dylan into his arms. Holding him so tightly, the boy squeaked in protest. "Oh God, Dylan," I thought, "when I couldn't find you." His voice broke. "I'm so sorry, buddy. I'm so sorry." Then he looked up and saw who was standing next to her car. The color drained from his face. "Sarah?" She couldn't speak. Couldn't move. 3 years of anger and abandonment and late-night tears when Emma asked why Daddy didn't love them anymore. All of it came flooding back. "You found him," James said, his voice shaking. Thank you. Thank you for—" He was freezing. Sarah cut him off, her tone cold. Alone, in a t-shirt. In the snow. The accusation hung between them. James's face crumpled with shame. I know. I turned my back for 2 seconds to grab milk, and when I looked back, he was gone. I've been searching for 20 minutes. I called the police. He stopped, really looking at her for the first time. What are you doing here? I thought you moved to Denver. I live here, Sarah said. I've always lived here, 2 blocks from where I found your son freezing to death. The words were sharp, designed to wound, and they did. James flinched like she'd slapped him. I have another son, Sarah continued, her voice trembling with barely controlled rage. Emma has a brother. And you never thought to mention that? Dylan was looking between them, confused and scared by the tension. Daddy, do you know this lady? James closed his eyes. Yeah, buddy. I know her. How? The question hung in the freezing air. Sarah waited, arms crossed, daring him to explain. Daring him to tell this child about the family he'd walked away from. But James just said, It's complicated. Let's get you home and warmed up, okay? No, Sarah said firmly. Not okay. You don't get to walk away again. Not this time. Not when your son was in danger because you weren't paying attention. That's not fair. Fair? Sarah's voice rose. You disappeared 3 years ago. No explanation. No child support. No phone calls. Emma still asks about you. She still thinks you're coming back. And now I find out you have another child? That you've been here this whole time? James's face twisted with guilt and something else. Pain, maybe, or regret so deep it had carved new lines around his eyes. I didn't know how to tell you, he whispered. Tell me what? Can we not do this in front of Dylan? James asked quietly, glancing at his son, who was shivering in Sarah's coat, watching them with frightened eyes. Sarah looked at the little boy, innocent, cold, confused. Her anger softened slightly. Get him home. Get him warm. Then we talk. Tonight. James nodded, relief and dread mixing on his face. Okay, give me your number. You have my number, Sarah said coldly. You've had it for 3 years. Use it. She turned to Dylan, her voice gentling. You stay close to your daddy, okay? No more wandering off. Okay, Dylan said in a small voice. Then, thank you for helping me. Sarah's heart cracked a little. You're welcome, sweetie. She drove home in a daze, her mind spinning. When she walked through her door, Emma looked up from the puzzle she was working on with the babysitter. Mommy, you're home! Sarah held her daughter tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, trying to ground herself in the one pure, uncomplicated love in her life. 2 hours later, after Emma was asleep and the babysitter had left, Sarah's phone rang. I'm outside, James said. Can we talk? She found him sitting on her porch steps, snow dusting his shoulders. He looked older than she remembered. Tired. Broken in ways that hadn't been there 3 years ago. She sat down next to him, maintaining careful distance. Dylan's mother is my ex-girlfriend from college, James began without preamble. We dated for 2 years, broke up badly, and I didn't see her again for 15 years. When she found me 3 years ago, she had a 6-year-old son, Dylan. She told me I was his father. Showed me the birth certificate, the timeline, everything. Sarah's chest tightened. 3 years ago, right when you left us. I didn't know how to tell you, James said, his voice cracking. I didn't know how to say, I have a son I didn't know existed, and his mother is demanding joint custody and child support for all the years I missed. So you just left? I panicked. I know that's not an excuse. I know I handled everything wrong. But Sarah, I was drowning. Dylan's mother was threatening to sue for back child support, 6 years' worth. I could barely afford our rent as it was. I took a second job, then a third. I moved to a cheaper apartment across town so I could send you money. I never got any money, Sarah interrupted. James pulled out his phone, scrolling to his banking app. He showed her transaction after transaction, monthly deposits to an account in Sarah's name. Hundreds of dollars every month for 3 years. But the account number was wrong. Off by a single digit. Oh God, James whispered, staring at the screen. I transposed 2 numbers. All this time, I've been sending money to the wrong account. Sarah felt dizzy. 3 years of resentment, 3 years of telling Emma that her father didn't care, 3 years of thinking she'd been abandoned. You should have told me, she said, tears streaming down her face. You should have come to me and said, I'm scared. I'm overwhelmed. I need help. Instead, you just disappeared. I know. I thought I was protecting you from the mess, protecting Emma from having to share me with another child, but I just made everything worse. They sat in silence, snow falling around them, the weight of 3 years of miscommunication and pain settling between them like a third presence. Does Dylan know about Emma? Sarah asked finally. James shook his head. His mother made it clear she didn't want complications, didn't want him confused by a half-sister he'd never met. I went along with it because I thought it was easier for everyone. Easier, Sarah repeated bitterly. You keep choosing easier instead of